net zero has been around for a number of years now. So a lot of businesses seem quite comfortable with 1 and 2. Scope 3 seems to be the biggest challenge. Why is that?
Yeah. Partly because so much of it is outside of your direct control, but also that's because it includes the amount of data you need to kind of capture it. Is a lot beyond kind of what maybe most organisers kind of collect and hold internally. So often you'll need information on all the purchases you've done in the year that you're planning to report, or the waste you've produced, the business travel you've done, as well as actually information on deliveries coming to you, deliveries to clients, how clients are using products. So actually often there's a lot of information there that businesses don't tend to typically record and hold internally, or even the data that is recorded is often not necessarily stored centrally, so you're going to having to go to kind of procurement or finance or estate managers to actually try and find the little bits of information you need and compile it to then kind of measure those emissions.
Fine. And so a lot of it sounds like it's an education for clients around how they organise themselves and start tracking this information.
Yes,
they may not be doing it already, so they need to start tracking and then continue that to monitor it. And, so once they're monitoring, how do they then help reduce that scope 3 emission? What could a business do to help on that area?
Yeah, and there's a lot of steps that could be taken. Obviously, you ideally need to identify where your biggest source of emissions are, because that's where you're going to have the biggest opportunities. And for most businesses, that is their purchased goods and services. So in like most cases, that would involve kind of developing a supplier engagement programme. So actually going to your suppliers, understanding where they are on their net zero journey, kind of what they're doing and what support they might need, and kind of working with them to help them reduce their emissions, which in turn reduces yours. But there are a lot of other bits. So there's things like reducing your waste, looking at using more sustainable business travel. Kind of there is a really big range of stuff that can be implemented across the whole business.
And is that the something that we're seeing now where it's impacting procurement processes? We obviously handle a lot, particularly in public sector. We see when they put tenders out, there seems to be a bit more focus on this. And is that a way that businesses are helping their scope 3 by putting it into procurement practice and things like that?
Yeah, it's becoming increasingly common that you'll need to kind of, in order to kind of keep working with those big clients of yours, actually show that you're measuring your emissions, tell them what they are, engage with them on that. And actually increasingly, although it's already quite far ahead in the public sector, including the private sector, people are putting in targets, sort of saying we will not work with you if you haven't got either a target in goal or a target in place, or have been shown that you're working to reduce your emissions.
Again, it's something that we're seeing more and more often, where customers have been working with a partner for many years, but they've now implemented these net zero targets, and they fall into that supply chain. So they're sort of needing help to look after their own scope 1 and 2 to make sure that they're doing their part. But then again, they've got their own scope 3 they need to handle, and I suppose that's where your team helps. Is it's helping with all of that rounded data, and not only tracking it, but then there's the next step, I suppose, of implementing measures as well. Yeah,
exactly. And actually it's really important it's all well and good to measure it, but actually if you're not putting in those steps to reduce it, there's actually that's the most important step. And I think that's the important bit with scope 3, is that it is a continued journey. So no one's expecting you to get the perfect scope 3 first time, because you won't really. There isn't the data there at the moment, but every time you do it, you'll be working to improve the data you've got, get better kind of results as a consequence, and then you can work to reduce those and show that evidence as well that they're working.